This is the 3D VIEW-MASTER tale, Charlotte's Web. VIEW-MASTER Reel 1, Picture 1. There's no place more wonderful than a farm in springtime. Buds swell into blossoms, eggs hatch, young are born. Around the barnyard, big families are a blessing for everybody except the runt. John Arable had been up since daybreak. He had seen the size of one of the newborn pigs, and he wasn't looking forward to what he had to do. "Good morning, Papa," said Fern. "What are you gonna do with that axe?" "Some pigs were born last night," said Mr. Arable. "This one is a runt. I'm going to have to do away with it." "You mean kill it? Just because it's smaller than the others? This is the worst case of injustice I ever heard of." He hesitated. "I've got a good mind to let you raise this pig, Fern. Then you'd see what trouble a pig can be." "Oh, Papa, thank you." She took the pig and cuddled it. "He's absolutely perfect. His name is going to be Wilbur." Picture 2. Fern fed Wilbur with a baby bottle and sang to him as she sat in the swing in the backyard. One day she took Wilbur for a stroll in the doll buggy and passed the house of a boy named Henry Fussy. Through the open window she saw Henry practicing his violin lesson. "Where'd you get the neat pig?" asked Henry eagerly. "Let me hold him." He took Wilbur in his arms. "You know, Henry," said Fern, "you ought to have a dog or something." "Mother says pets are unsanitary," sighed Henry. Picture 3. By the time Wilbur was 6 weeks old, he had grown so big that John Arable decided it was time he stopped being a pet and started being a pig. "He's got to be sold, Fern," he said. "He's not a baby anymore, and his brothers and sisters are already sold." The next day was the saddest one Fern and Wilbur had ever known. Wilbur was sold down the road to Fern's uncle, Homer Sugarman, who had a larger farm than Fern's father's. Picture 4. Wilbur's new home was in the lower part of Mr. Sugarman's big barn, next to the sheepfold. A goose sat nearby, keeping her 8 eggs warm until hatching time. A rat with the unusual name of Templeton lived in a hole in the barn floor. Wilbur was lonesome. He walked up to the goose. "Will you play with me?" "Sorry, Sonny, sorry," said the goose, who talked rather fast. "I'm sitting on my eggs. I'm acting a family of goslings." Wilbur spoke to a lamb. "Will you play with me?" The lamb's father, a ram with curly horns, spoke up. "Certainly not. Sheep do not play with pigs. It's a matter of status. Sheep give wool. With pigs it's just a matter of time until you're fat enough to kill." "What did you say?" gasped Wilbur. "Everyone knows that in the fall you'll be killed and turned into smoked bacon and ham," said the ram. Wilbur promptly fainted. "Templeton," said the goose, "would you please do something about Wilbur?" The rat bit him on the tail, and Wilbur quickly came to life with a squeal. "I don't wanna die," he wailed. A feminine voice from somewhere above him spoke up for the first time. "Chin up, Wilbur. Wilbur looked up startled. Who said that? I'll be your friend, continued the voice, and I'll try to save your life too. Wilbur looked around but couldn't see anyone. Where are you? He asked in bewilderment. Look up here in the doorway, said the voice. Picture 5. On a web in the other corner of the doorway sat a pretty grey spider. She lowered herself on a filmy dragline until she was close to Wilbur. Salutations, she said. My name is Charlotte. We spiders are very useful creatures. I wish I were useful, said Wilbur. Maybe I'll spin a web like you. How do you do it? Take a deep breath, said Charlotte. Now climb to the highest place you can get to and jump off. Wilbur climbed to the top of a pile of hay, leaped into the air and landed on the floor in a heap. Picture 6. I know what I forgot, he said as he got up. I need a drag line to hang by like you. He crossed to his through. Are you there, Templeton? He asked the rat. Got a little piece of string I could borrow. What's in it for me? Asked the rat craftily. I'll save you part of my breakfast, promised Wilbur. You've got yourself a deal. Templeton ducked down into his hole and came up with a piece of string. Tie one end to my tail, will you? Said Wilbur. Now attack the other end up to that rafter there. Thanks. Picture 7. Wilbur climbed up on the hay pile again. Now everybody watch. He took a deep breath, threw himself into space again, and came down with a clunk. I advise you to put that idea out of your mind, said Charlotte. You lack a set of spinnerets and you lack the know-how. But chin up, you don't need a web to catch food. You have your meals brought to you each day in a pail. VIEW-MASTER Reel 2, Picture 1. Since her uncle's farm was just down the road and within walking distance, Fern came almost every day to Sugarman's barn to visit Wilbur. She soon became acquainted with his friends too. One day, while Fern was there, Charlotte lowered herself on a dragline and summoned all the animals to a meeting. I am sure everyone will be gratified to learn, she announced, that the goslings have arrived. The brown goose stood up to reveal 7 fluffy babies moving about beneath her. One egg had not hatched. Templeton looked at the remaining egg. Why didn't this one hatch? He asked. What are you going to do with it? It's a dud, I guess, said the goose. Do you want it? Roll it away and add it to that nasty collection of yours. Be careful, it's rotten otten. I know what I'm doing, said the rat. I handle stuff like this all the time. Picture 2. The goose led her family out of the nest. Last to leave was an undersized gosling who tripped and landed in front of Wilbur. Are you my mother? He chirped. No, I'm Wilbur. I'm not your mother, but I'll be your friend. I was a runt like you once. Wilbur put his head down and the little gosling climbed up onto Wilbur's nose. Together they sang a little song. We've got a lot in common. Come along, Joffrey, called the goose. It's time for swimming lessons. Let's be friends forever, Wilbur, said Joffrey. Picture 3. The next morning at breakfast, Fern announced to her mother, father, and brother Avery Did you know that Uncle Homer's goslings have hatched? How many? Asked her father. 7. There were 8 eggs, but 1 egg didn't hatch, and the goose told Templeton he could have it. The goose did what? Asked her mother. Told Templeton she didn't want the egg anymore. Templeton is a rat. None of us like him much. Who's us? Queried her mother. Oh, everybody in the barn, chattered Fern. Wilbur and the sheep and the lambs and goose, and Charlotte and me. Charlotte? Puzzled her mother. Who's Charlotte? Wilbur's friend. She's terribly clever. She has 8 legs and catches flies in her web. Fern, stop inventing these wild tales, said Miss Arable. I'm not inventing, I'm just telling the facts. Darling, said her mother firmly, you're spending too much time in that barn. Picture 4. Day after day, Charlotte hung from her web, waiting patiently for an idea to come to her to save Wilbur from being killed when fall came. One day she exclaimed suddenly, "How perfectly simple!" "What's that, Charlotte?" asked Wilbur. "I plan to save your life by playing a trick on Sugarman. People are very gullible, Wilbur. They'll believe anything they see in print." She began to dismantle her web. "What are you doing, Charlotte?" asked Wilbur. "Just trust me," she replied. All that afternoon Charlotte worked on the outer strands of her new web. Night came. At midnight, Templeton scurried by. "What are you doing working so late?" he asked. "I'll be lucky if I'm finished by sun-up," she answered. "Good night, Templeton." Picture 5. The next morning was foggy. Charlotte's new web was a thing of beauty. Each thin strand was decorated with tiny beds of water. Even Lurvy, Sugarman's hired man, noticed the web when he came in with the pig's breakfast. Then he looked again and gasped. There, in the center of the web, neatly woven in capital letters, was a message. It said, "Some pig." Lurvy turned and ran. "Mr. Sugarman!" he shouted. Mr. and Mrs. Sugarman both ran to the barn. "Do you see what I see?" panted Lurvy, pointing. "Some pig." Sugarman mused. "Edith," he told his wife, "we have received a sign. We have a most unusual pig." "It seems to me we have a most unusual spider," she said. "No, it's just a common gray spider," he corrected her. "See, it's sitting right there." By afternoon, the barnyard was full of curious neighbors who had come to see Sugarman's unusual pig. Charlotte called another meeting of the animals. "I need another message," she said. "Does anyone have an idea?" "How about terrific?" suggested the goose. Picture 6. "Mr. Sugarman!" yelled Lurvy. "Another miracle!" Homer and Edith Sugarman ran to the barn, and there it was, a new web with one word woven into it. Terrific! The newspaper headline announced, "Another miracle at Sugarman's." Folks who had come to see Wilbur when he was some pig came again, now that he was terrific. A proud Homer Sugarman addressed the crowd. "Friends, you'll have another chance to see my terrific pig, because I've decided to take him to the county fair." He turned to his hired man. "Lurvy, make a crate. Paint it green with gold letters that say, 'Sugarman's famous pig.'" After the crowd left, Charlotte called another meeting in the barn. "We've got to keep interest stirred up. I need new ideas for the web. Templeton, please go to the dump and bring me a magazine clipping or something else with words on it." Grumbling, Templeton slunk out and soon came back with a piece of an empty package of soap flakes. A slogan was printed on it, "With new radiant action." "Radiant you shall be, Wilbur," said Charlotte. "Try to act radiant. Run around in your pen, jump and do backflips." Picture 7. To live up to the radiant message on the newest web, Wilbur acted radiant. He jumped, he did backflips. With half twists, he turned somersaults. A newspaper photographer took a picture of Sugarman's radiant pig with Lurvy posing proudly beside him. VIEW-MASTER Reel 3. Picture 1. Wilbur had begged Charlotte to go to the fair with him, but she said the time had almost come for her to make an egg sack and lay eggs in it. However, at last she said, "I shall go too. Somebody's got to go along who knows how to write. Templeton, I'll need you there too." The morning of the fair dawned hot. Homer, Sugarman, and Lurvy rushed about, but Miss Sugarman remained calm. "Homer, I'm going to give that pig a buttermilk bath," she announced. "My grandmother used to bath her pigs with buttermilk before taking them to the fair." Picture 2. Charlotte and Templeton hid inside Wilbur's crate. Lurvy drove the truck, and the Sugarmans and the Arables, including Fern and Avery, rode in it. Sugarman's famous pig, in his green crate with the gold lettering, was installed among the livestock exhibits. Picture 3. "When are you going to spin a web, Charlotte?" asked Wilbur, when they and Templeton were alone. "Tonight, if I'm not too tired. As soon as it's dark, I'll send Templeton out to find a word. I'd like a good word, Templeton, since I shall be writing tonight for the last time." After dark, Templeton came back with a piece of newspaper with the word "humble" in its headline. "That's Wilbur all over," she said. "Thanks, Templeton." Late at night, Wilbur stirred in his bed and asked, "What are you doing up there, Charlotte?" Her voice sounded weak and tired. "The web is finished, and now I'm making something else. When the first light comes into the sky, you'll see my masterpiece." Next morning, Wilbur awoke and looked. Above was the web with the word "humble" on it, and beside it a small silvery white bag hanging in the corner. "What is that nifty little thing?" he asked. "That's my egg sack, my masterpiece. Inside it are 514 eggs. Picture 4. All that night, Templeton had been having the time of his life. A county fair is a rat's paradise. Everybody spills food at the fair. At daybreak he came back, his stomach swollen to double size. "What a night!" he hiccuped. "Half-eaten sandwiches, popcorn, pickles, candied apples. Oh, it was rich." Picture 5. "Look at Charlotte's web," exclaimed Fern. "What do you mean, Charlotte?" said her uncle. "Charlotte who?" "It's another miracle. That's what it is. Hey, everybody, look what it says about my radiant humble pig." He ran away to look for the newspaper reporters, and the other followed. When they had gone, Charlotte said weakly, I'm done for, Wilbur. In a little while I'll be dead. Come now, Wilbur, don't cry. Chin up, remember? Picture 6. Templeton, said Wilbur, Charlotte can go home with us. I must take her egg sack home with me. You are the only one that can reach it. Please bring it down. Templeton crawled up and pulled the egg sack loose. This is so thick in my mouth, he complained. It's worse than caramel candy. Soon after Sugarman returned with the reporters, the music of a marching band blared nearer and nearer. The bandmaster stopped in front of Homer. Mr. Sugarman, I've come to escort you and your famous pig to the grandstand. Picture 7. Ladies and gentlemen, said the official, we now present Mr. Homer Sugarman and his famous pig. I have the honor to award this bronze medal to this terrific pig. Thank you, responded Sugarman. He's some pig, and if I have anything to say about it, he's going to live to a ripe old age. Wilbur came back to his crate in triumph. Charlotte, Mr. Sugarman is going to let me live. You've saved my life. I'm happy, Wilbur. Her voice was just a weak whisper. Suddenly she fell to the floor, dead. A sad Wilbur, wearing his medal, came home to his beloved barn. In his mouth he held a sack of spider's eggs. He put it in a safe place and watched over it all fall and winter. Finally, one spring day they hatched. Wilbur rejoiced. Hello, he said. I'm an old friend of your mother's. Hundreds of tiny voices answered, hello. The baby spiders crawled to a railing near the open door of the barn. Then each spun a tiny webby balloon and began floating away on the aircraft of the warm spring breeze. Children, called Wilbur in alarm, where are you going? Out into the world to make webs for ourselves. Soon all the spiders had gone but 3. We're too little to fly, they said. We'll live here with you. Wilbur never forgot Charlotte. Although he loved her children, none of them ever quite took her place in his heart. It is not often that someone comes along who is a true friend and a good rider. Charlotte was both.